Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, breaking down the game we love each and every day. National Signing Days in the books, at least the early one with February out in front. Doesn't take long to typically go down the recruiting rankings list to find Alabama. Make that like one spot. Number one class in the country once again. We got Stephen M. Smith on the line from touchdownalabama.com. All right, Stephen, we appreciate you after a grind of a day on Wednesday, of course, jumping on board with us here. I'm going to ask that you take us through National Signing Day from the Alabama perspective, because I know that there were a number of flips that came their way, a number of guys that, in particular on the LSU side, that came into the fold in Tuscaloosa.
Absolutely. And Mark, just first and foremost, with this class, Nick Saban really got back to having those impactful players, those monsters on the defensive side of the football. Hit on a lot of needs and then some. When you start the day with Devontae Smith, not the receiver Devontae Smith, the cornerback, defensive back Devontae Smith, by the way of LaSalle High School in Cincinnati, Ohio. He's got range. He's got quickness. He's got a lot of ability to him. Very strong tackler. He's got the size to play corner, but Alabama may look at him to possibly play safety. As we all know, Coach Saban loves to cross-train his defensive backs. You pick up a Devontae Smith. You get a JaQuincy McKinstry from Pinson Valley High School here in Alabama, and that young man, just a very pure athlete, can play a receiver, can play defensive back. Kind of reminds me a little bit of Trayvon Diggs, of whom Alabama got in the 2016 cycle from Maryland. You've got, both of those two guys, and there's a Kadarius Callaway out of Philadelphia, Mississippi, a guy that was vastly underrated in this class, but he's got tremendous recovery speed. He can play wide receiver, but Alabama looks to play him at corner. So you picked up some defensive backs at linebacker. Coach Saban continues to stockpile that position. You look at Dallas Turner. You bring in a Kendrick Blackshear from Texas. Those Texas young men built very different. So you pick up an Ian Jackson at Prattville High School here at Alabama. He is something special, something to deal with. And then of course you look at Keanu Coate Keanu Coate, who was originally committed to LSU. He chooses to flip to Alabama. He will be either a nice addition, either a defensive end or an outside linebacker. You pick up some great defensive line prospects in Quinn Barnes, a 3-star from Lee High School in Montgomery. Nick Saban continuing to vastly recruit the Montgomery area. But Damon Payne comes in here as well, a 5-star, very extremely explosive young man. No relation to Deron Payne, who was here from the Birmingham area, but Damon Payne, highly explosive, very quick, very agile on that defensive front. So I think going back to, the 2019 and 2018 classes where Nick Saban missed on some guys defensively in recruiting, and after the struggles it had defensively in 2019, I think Coach Saban thought to himself, we got to get back to recruiting those not only high character guys, but those aggressive players on the field defensively that have made this program what it has been in recent seasons under the Saban tenure. And I felt like he got back to that with this class, particularly on that side of the ball.
Interesting, Stephen, that you cite defense being a priority in getting those playmakers and game changers on that side of the ball, when Nick Saban, of course, made the comment several weeks ago that was much publicized about offense taking over for defense to a certain extent in regards to winning championships. Let me ask you this, Stephen, because you followed this for a long time and have a pulse on this in regards to the offensive philosophy on the recruiting angle and how it's different for Alabama today than it was, even though they were getting playmakers like Ridley and Jones and those guys 5 and 10 years ago, how it's changed in the last couple of years with the development and the progression of the offensive passing game.
Well, football has become so much of a space game now, Mark. Of course, you know as well as I do, it's all about space. It's all about making defenders guard every inch, every blade of grass on that field. The football field 100 yards long or 53 yards wide, and you're making defensive backs guard every inch of that. So in today's day and age, you're looking to have, coordinators, offensive coordinators that are very savvy in how can I create these matchups where I'm stressing out a defensive coordinator, I'm stressing out a defensive head coach, or I'm stressing out defensive players on the field and making them have to guard every inch and dynamic and spectrum of that field. And we can go back to, of course, 2014, where Saban made the move to bring Lane Kiffin into the program. And that was not a popular move at first, but Saban sensed right then and there that the game was changing, that the game was shifting, and how Alabama needed an upgrade on the offensive side of the ball to change that philosophy a little bit. So bringing in Lane Kiffin, 2014 kind of kickstarted that. And then you bring back, Sarkisian after 2016. He was at Alabama as an offensive analyst and goes to the National Football League to work with the Falcons for 2 years. But you bring back Steve Sarkisian, and he has some tendencies similar to Kiffin, but his wherewithal is even building more so on, getting the right matchups, getting the right playmakers, getting the right guys into the system to make this offense what it is. And after having, guys like the Jerry Judys, the Henry Ruggs, Devontae Smiths, Jalen Waddles in here for the last couple of years, and you lose a Henry Ruggs, you lose a Jerry Jeudy to the NFL. And then after this year, you're going to lose a Devontae Smith to the league and possibly a Jalen Waddle. Saban always likes to have a rotation of 4 to 5 receivers per signing class. So with this group he brought in, you get 2 really fast guys in a Christian Leary from Orlando, Florida, and a JoJo Earl from Aledo, Texas. But then you bring in 2 physical, big body athletic guys, both from the South Florida area, in Asia Hall and Ja'Cory Brooks. So Saban got a mixture of guys in this class to continue what Sarkisian wants to do in stressing out these defenses, because football now has become way more of a speed and space and playmaker matchup type game on offense.
We've got Stephen M. Smith of TouchdownAlabama.com on the line, breaking down the Alabama recruiting class, consensus #1 in the country by all the major services. Stephen, I'm going to ask you this question. I'm going to have you look down the board. A lot of publicity going to the top of the board, of course. But as you scan the board, guys that might not be getting as much attention, that based on the scouting reports, based on what you've watched on tape, that you really like?
First one that comes to mind, Mark, is the 3-star defensive lineman, Quinn Barnes, out of Lee High School in Montgomery. He's not getting a lot of publicity, but this is a kid that I compare to Dalvin Tomlinson when Tomlinson came to Alabama from Georgia in the 2012 class. No one talked a lot about Dalvin, but when that young man was healthy, you look at one of the best, most underrated defensive linemen to ever play in the Saban era. Big, but also very athletic at 6'4", 312 pounds. Really good in batting balls down, could stuff the run. Surprisingly, Dalvin Tomlinson was actually a very good pass rusher also from the interior defensive line. No one spoke a lot about Dalvin because he played with Damon Payne. He played with Jonathan Allen. He played with Tim Williams and Ryan Anderson. He had so many big players around him that he kind of got lost in the shuffle. But when Dalvin made an impact play, you knew it was him because he had that type of energy, effort, and motor to his style of play. And when I watch Quinn Barnes, I see the exact same type of player. He doesn't get the attention. He doesn't get the publicity, but the size is there, the speed is there, the motor is there, the energy is there. You're talking Quinn Barnes. I'm very excited to see that young man. And I'm also excited to see James Brockermeyer on the offensive line. I know his brother, Tommy Brockermeyer, gets a lot of praise for the 5-star offensive tackle. They both come from Texas. Their father, Blake Brockermeyer, played in the NFL, really phenomenal offensive linemen. I know Tommy Brockemeyer, J.C. Latham out of Florida, Terrence Ferguson out of Georgia. These other guys get more love than James Brockemeyer, but this guy is nasty, mean, aggressive on that interior offensive line, Mark. I can see him being either a center or a guard at Alabama, really taking it to opposing defensive linemen and working up to that next level. Really love Quinn Barnes. Really like James Brockemeyer.
Stephen, do we expect much activity between now and the second National Signing Day on that first Wednesday of February?
We could, Mark. I mean, the magic number right now for Alabama, it looks like 26 or 27. So there's still 2 to 3 more guys that Coach Saban could look at. And it could be guys that, like the JoJo Earl young man yesterday, that he came out of nowhere. No one was expecting Earl to flip to Alabama after being originally committed to LSU. So it could be a situation where it could be a name that comes from nowhere. No one's talking about it. No one's discussing it. But that name could rise, and Alabama could be the one getting that name. Now, it could come at the quarterback position. It could come maybe at the tight end spot. Alabama hit on all of its basic needs in this first signing period, and it got some wants as well. So the last 2 to 3 names, it could be somebody that no one's really discussing. They come on late in the recruiting process, and Alabama becomes fortunate in picking up that name.
Oh, yeah, there's an SEC championship game to be played this Saturday night. That's right. Almost forgot about that. Some people get wrapped up in National Signing Day and a 17-point point spread, a little chance given to the Florida Gators, especially considering their performance last Saturday night. So I'm going to set it up for you this way, Stephen. We're all assuming an Alabama victory. Give me the case for a Florida upset. What are some possible matchups that Florida can take advantage of where Alabama's maybe shown just a tinge of vulnerability?
Well, for Florida here, the biggest shot in this game is going to be getting the best matchup for Kyle Pitts. He's the X factor in this football game. He wanted to play last week against LSU. Coach Mullen decided to hold him out of that game, but when you have a tight end of Pitts' ability, it's almost like facing another wide receiver. Do they have him more on the inner line? Do they flex him out wide? Can they get the best possible matchup for him? And then number 2, you got to hope that Alabama has some coverage bust. And that's been kind of the area where Bama's been susceptible to at times this season. It's gotten better as the year has progressed, but there have been some moments where Bama is prone to having a coverage bust or two, whether it's a running back on a wheel route or somebody not taking a tight end or somebody not, communicating and passing off on a wide receiver, and a wide receiver goes open down the middle of the field on a play or two. So for Florida, you got to hope for some coverage bust in this game. You got to hope for, Damian Pierce at running back. Can Florida get a running game going? That's another big thing. They have not been able to run the football the way they would like to. Now, Alabama has tightened up its run defense down the stretch, but can Florida establish a run game? And then number 2, can it get some coverage bust from Alabama's defensive secondary to open up some big plays? Those will be the main 2 things there for Florida.
He is Stephen M. Smith of TouchdownAlabama.com, joins us on a regular basis to break down the Tide and has for a number of years. Stephen, I would like you to let everyone know where they can find you.
Absolutely. They can find me on Twitter. That's Coaching M. Smith on Twitter. You can find me right there. You can find me also on Facebook. That is Stephen M. Smith on Facebook. You can find Touchdown Alabama Magazine, the site that I work for, on Facebook. That's Touchdown Alabama Magazine. On Twitter, we are TD Alabama Mag on Twitter. That's at TD Alabama Mag. The site is touchdownalabama.com, where we break down the Crimson Tide, touchdownalabama.com. And, of course, the show, in my own words, the show every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on YouTube. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, in my own words, 6 p.m. Central Time, where we break down the Crimson Tide. For fans that want to call the show, they can call the show 205-585-8367. 448-1358. That's 205-448-1358. We're talking Tide.
All right, Stephen. We know you're going a mile a minute. Appreciate you putting the brakes on for us just about once a week. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate you guys.